Hi, Dov.
Hi, Yori, how are you?
Hi. I saw you're wearing a jacket, so I decided to put mine on. Also.
Okay, so we're live, just so you know.
We are already live.
Yeah, we're live, right? Oh yeah, that's what I said. As soon as
Okay. Can you give me 2 minutes, please?
yeah, you've got
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Right. Okay. I need 2 minutes. I'm turning off, or I don't know what.
Okay, so just put your camera off and keep your sound off is better. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Virtual Conference Live Talks with me, Dov Ben-Yaakov Kurtzman. Okay, we're just waiting on Yori getting ready now, and we won't be starting for another minute or so anyway, so put comments in when you're arriving, tell us where you're coming in from, would be very helpful. So we see Daniel Moran is here, Jane Silver is here, Batsheva Diane Bahat is here. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Virtual Conference. Let us know where you're coming from. Put something in the comment just to say hi, and where you're tuning in from, or where you're coming into the stream from would be great. It's great to see there's so many people joining. So just waiting now on Yori getting ready, and we'll be ready to go in about a minute or two. We'll just to explain to Yori that there's a bit of delay on Facebook Live, and so it's not a problem that we're just waiting till it filters through to the other side. So that's not a problem. Suri Rabinovitz is here. Fantastic. So just say if you're coming in from Facebook Live, just give us a clue where you're coming from. So Miri Moore is coming from Israel. Where else are you coming from? Just put it in the comments. Let's see where the community is that's tuning in. So just give that a couple of minutes, Yori, and then we'll start with you. And
Dov, pardon me?
No, it's okay. If somebody is having problems getting in on Facebook Live, then you might be able to get in on YouTube. I'll just try and get you the the link while we're waiting on Facebook filling up. So just give me a second. I'll get you the Facebook. Okay, so the YouTube. So first of all, if anyone's having, if anyone needs to get in on YouTube, you can come in YouTube. Let me just check if okay. All right, so a few seconds more and we'll be off. So we've got somebody from Hoda Sharon, we've got Adam from Israel, we've got Lilach. Hi, Lilach. That's great. We're really building up with quite a big audience, Yori. So I think the best thing now would be to really get started, and be looking forward to it. So let me start off. Good evening, everybody from Manchester, England. Virtual Conference Live Talks with me, Dov Ben-Yaakov Kurtzman, and a very, very dear guest we have tonight, close to my heart, Yori Gidron. Yori, I can say, is a personal teacher of mine. I know he's a big professor in universities. I haven't had the privilege of studying with him at university, but nevertheless, I am his student when it comes to psychological first aid in a crisis situation. And Yori, I want you to actually introduce yourself in a minute. I can't do you justice, but just as a little introduction from my personal experience with you is that overall, and one of the main things that I talk about every day and I'm live on every day is about our values. And it's about taking committed action on our values, things that are important to us, things that matter to us. And even though we might not be feeling that good, we might have disturbing thoughts and we might have an emotional roller coaster, actually going out and taking committed action, even though you don't feel that good, based on the values that you think is important in life, is something that I talk about here daily. And you are, for me, one of these people that is a living example of that. And 3 years ago in Manchester, there was a catastrophe, a massacre, what I call the Manchester Massacre, where 22 young kids were blown up in a Manchester arena. And you were on site within hours to help us train over 70 volunteers in techniques. And I will never forget that, because that was the most incredible example of somebody jumping on their values, dropping everything and coming to a different country. It's not like you were down the road, coming to a different country. I met you then. We got on like a house on fire. We've been friends ever since. I am really, really privileged to know you. And it's not about me tonight. It's about what you can give us. It's about the people watching this. It's about what they can spread to the people they know. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Yori, and give us a little bit of background, a little bit of who you are, and then delve straight into it.
Thank you very much. I'm very embarrassed about almost all what you said. Just a technical question. Will you, if I open my PowerPoint, will you see it?
Okay, so let me just, it should be fine.
Here, I opened it now. Can you see it?
All right, so did you do share screen?
1 second.
I can see you. But
voila. 1 second. Here you are. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So
you have it?
So we can see it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dov. I'm gonna revenge and tell back. Dov is actually one of the nicer people I know, and I was honored that he invited me to the UK to indeed help twice, once after the London bombing and once after the event in the horrible terrorist attack in Manchester. So it is an honor to work with him, and he's also a man that is a man of action and not just a man of words. And he has many, many hats and many, many knowledges. Some of them are more known, some of them are less known, and I'm very happy to know him. I'm a professor at the University of Haifa. I'm from Israel, I'm from Jerusalem, but I live now in Haifa. I've lived in many countries, a few too many. I'm not a clinical psychologist, I'm not a clinician even, I'm a simple scientist, but my work is very clinical and my work is very applied. And I'm going to share with you some of our work that we've done over the years and that many other people have done too. I don't have all the knowledge on how to translate science to actually helping people on a regular basis, dealing with the stressful situations we are in. So can you see it now? Big?
Yeah, that's great. That's really good.
Right. Okay.
Just a second, just before you start, you've got a hello from Adam Layton, says warm regards. Hi from Moran, Yossi Ehrlich from Israel, and Norman Evans from Canada. So you've got a lot of people tuning in and listening to everyone. Off you go. I want to start.
Shalom to all of you, and shalom from beautiful Haifa in Israel. The aim of this little talk is going to be to learn about the psychological facts about the psychological responses to epidemics. There have been studies on this already. The facts about the psychological consequences of being in quarantine, and to learn the basics of stress management and emotional regulation, and a bit about the biology and the psychobiology of resilience. Unfortunately, I'm going to say the sentence, unlike a lot of people in my field, especially from the clinical domain, that will speak to you based on their beliefs and their stomach, I don't do that. I think that's quite incorrect and very dangerous. And so what I'm going to say is based on science, okay? Based on scientific work and not based on my own opinion. And you'll see, I'll mention a bit what is the price that we pay in society when we treat people without basing it on science. So let's look at a bit of the facts about what's going on in this epidemic. This is a study, a large study that did a content analysis on nearly 18,000 Chinese blogs. That's a lot. And they did a content analysis using a very sophisticated computer program called machine learning. And they found indeed that they looked at these blogs before and after the declaration of the coronavirus 19. And they saw indeed increases in anxiety content, depression content, and in anger, and reductions in happiness and life satisfaction. This is another culture, but this is the country of the source of the virus. You can see profound effects. Interestingly, people were more concerned with their own health and family than about friends and leisure. So there's a bit of a closure and convergence onto what Dov talked about, core values and values. In 2009, we had the H1N1 virus, the swine flu. We thought that George Orwell was right and everybody's going to end, the world's going to end, and luckily he was wrong. And we're all here. And I wish all of us and all of you health. But in a study that was done in the United Kingdom, a quarter of the sample were anxious. This is brand new data. You're one of the first to see this. This is an informal inquiry I did among students at the University of Haifa. 44% reported severe anxiety 2 weeks ago. This is 2 weeks ago, before Israel was under almost full closure. We are now under almost full closure. Severe anxiety, 44%. This is mad. This is totally a very high number, not moderate anxiety, severe anxiety. So we used a validated scale and with norms, published norms and cutoffs. Indeed, higher levels of resilience were related to lower levels of anxiety. We need to teach people how to be resilient. And I'll show you how to do that. If anybody of you are professionals or are just interested, I recommend reading this paper from The Lancet. It is already a review on the psychological impact of being in quarantine. Okay, this is a brand new paper, 2000, on the evidence on studies looking at the effects of the quarantine, being in quarantine on psychology. So the psychological effects of this. Important is that we pay attention to healthcare workers, HCWs. These people were found to be at a higher risk of having acute stress disorder, which is similar to post-traumatic stress disorder, but earlier on. Interestingly, that those that were quarantined felt more exhausted, irritable, detached from others. They were very anxious when they had to deal with people with fever, etc., 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 and they were considering to resign. In a lot of countries, we know now that this group of people, the healthcare workers, are overworked. They're really brought to the limit, and so we need to think about them in these days and in the coming weeks. We need to think about them and not let them go. We need to help them.
Yeah, I just say that from the experience here in the United Kingdom, anyway, they've just taken into the health service 750,000 volunteers to help the healthcare workers.
That's great.
But also the healthcare workers are exhausted, generally speaking, during the year, I must say.
That's right. That's right.
So this is really an overload that's happening to them. And
that's right.
Who knows what the long-term
that's right.
application.
So these are the stuff. So this paper is already talking about it, okay? About the long-term impact. You'll see this. Post-traumatic stress disorder is one of the consequences of trauma. I don't think we are in trauma now. We are in a different situation. People misuse this word trauma. Trauma is more like a sudden event that is a life-threatening, although there are some ingredients of trauma in the situation, but it especially means that you feel very threatened and that you feel very helpless, that you have a lot of helplessness and lack of control, okay, and threat. Indeed, this could be a traumatic event for some people, but not for everybody, okay? So we should be careful when we say all of us are in trauma. No, and it really depends on how you see the event. Anyhow, one of the consequences long-term, a month later, is post-traumatic stress disorder, which are uncontrollable flashbacks, avoiding to think about and being at places relevant to the situation, which we can't really do now, and high physiological arousal. Being quarantined was a risk factor for PTSD 3 years later, okay? Does not mean that all of us will get PTSD, not at all, but we need to know these facts, okay? This is a study on a study in Australia where they compared quarantined versus not quarantined regular Australians. You can see 3 times the amount of mental distress, 34% versus 12% or so. So almost about three times the amount.
So that's people that compared people that were in quarantine and not in quarantine in the same country.
That's right, and the same culture, right?
And when they were in quarantine, there was three times the distress levels.
Right.
Right.
I like when Dov repeats what I said, and he says it in his nicer, much more beautiful accent than mine. This is a study that looked at parents of children that were quarantined. Parents. So some of us are parents of kids that are quarantined. You can see the enormous difference in the amount of psychological and mental problems in the parents of kids that were quarantined compared to parents of non-quarantined kids. This is unbelievable. Okay, huge impact. And it's important to remember that there's a very strong link between the mother, especially the mother's mental health, and the child. So this could influence the children too. What are the stressors that people feel during quarantine? Again, being long periods of time, and the duration is a predictor of PTSD. Fear of infection predicted mental problems later, and fear of infection is a stressor. Loss of routine, loss of contact, loss of social contact makes people more bored and more frustrated. Insufficient supplies, so money, food,
toilet paper.
Right. Insufficient and unclear information. Very important that we are exposed to correct, valid, and enough sufficient information. Financial loss is a big thing. We know in more and more people. In Israel now, about 1 million people are unemployed out of 9 million. This is crazy, okay? And many of them some of them are salary paid, some of them are independent business people. There's a big uncertainty about their future, their professional's future, and day-to-day money, living. And another serious issue is stigma. If you're quarantined because you are exposed to somebody with corona, people start looking at you, ostracize you, etc. Okay, so why do we need stress management? You see, I think that most of us are normal people which need very simple skills and not sitting talking to a psychologist about their feelings until they're blue in their face. I will show you now evidence that will shake you a bit, because this is really good data showing that we need to rethink what we're doing to people in terms of mental health. Stress management is very easy to learn, very easy to implement, and it helps to reduce the stressors. More importantly, it helps to reduce the response to unchangeable stressors. Studies show that it can actually prevent psychiatric consequences of this. And as I said, there are going to be people that will have psychiatric consequences. It will help us to resume our basic activities because our functioning can go up. And research shows that stress management improves mental health. So these are the general skills that I'm saying. One of them is relaxation on one hand, and the other one is using our brain. And I'm going to show you in content and in evidence what I mean by these two things. You see, we know today that the key for mental health is not about emotional expression, but about emotional regulation. Okay? There's a very important difference. Emotional regulation includes skills like acceptance, resigning to what happened. Not necessarily meaning that you agree with it, but accepting that it happened. In a study that we did in Brussels, I used to live in Belgium. Soon after the bombing over there, we did a study on 3,000 people online. Acceptance was a strong correlate of better mental health following the terrorist attack. Emotional expression was not at all related to emotional well-being. In fact, emotional expression was associated with worse mental well-being, and very weakly, it was not even important. Acceptance was much more important. Positively focusing, directing your thoughts to pleasant things. What's happening now is that we are having a tunnel vision. We know that during stress, our attention is directed to the threat, to the stressor, and we don't see other things. The media is bombarding us with a lot of information. The media should be telling us also about other things, about the weather, about other events that are happening in our life, because instead of just tunnel visioning us to one thing, the corona. You should do that yourself and to your patients if you are clinicians. Refocusing on planning, thinking about actions that we can do to deal with negative events. Most importantly are the two last things, and I'll show you the evidence. Putting into perspective, diminishing the meaning of the event. I'll show you what I mean, and positive reappraisal, finding a positive side of things in this negative context. A lot of good things are happening now to people. People are discovering their family again. People are discovering core values, core friendships. Some people are learning new skills on the computer. A lot of us are doing volunteering thing like I'm doing now. Other people are doing other volunteering. It's giving us opportunity to be mentions, to bnei adam, to be people. And here's how we can use these skills to directly to the corona. Acceptance. You can say to yourself and to your patients, coronavirus is now a global fact. It's not about good, it's not about bad, it is there. Positive refocusing, thinking about your child's smile, thinking about your partner, thinking about your last vacation. Thinking about that and not mixing our own soup of sadness, okay? Refocusing on planning. I plan to sell via the internet. I plan to learn cooking. I plan to learn a new language. I plan to clean my house. I don't know, whatever, okay? Focus on planning rather than on your negative emotion. Importantly, and I bolded this, putting into perspective, and you'll see soon why. We can tell ourselves, yes, dying from corona is bad and sad, but many more die every day from other causes. Many, many more people die in countries because of other causes, not about corona. This helps to put it in perspective. And finally, reappraisal, positive reappraisal. Well, now I have more time for my kids, or now I have time for my hobby, or I have time for learning a new language, or something like that. And now it's going to come a bit of a shocking slide. We can't argue with this slide too much when you see that it's based on over 300 studies worldwide. 300 studies. Not one in England, not one in Israel, not one in the US, 300. Okay? They tested here the role of emotional regulation skills on feeling good, on regulating our negative emotions. Suppressing the expression of emotion was actually found to be beneficial. I repeat, suppressing momentarily the expression of the emotion was found to be beneficial. We tend to think this, we have this grandmother psychology in our head that if we share with people all the time, our feelings will feel better. Actually, the research does not validate that. Okay? Yeah, it is surprising, I know. In contrast, reappraising the event was more effective. Okay? As I said, maybe we can say to ourselves, this is an opportunity for us to see each other and to get closer to each other. This is an opportunity for humanity to go back to its core values. That's positive reappraisal. I'm not decorating the event. I'm not saying, I'm not pretending. I'm not denying that it's there, but I'm putting it in another way. We say in Hebrew, "Ota geveret b'shinui aderet." It rhymes. It means the same lady in another dress or another look. Only Hebrew
One
rhymes.
example of positive refocusing coming through on Facebook Live, Yori, while you have a little sip of water. Positive refocusing. Thanks to COVID-19, we get to hear Yori. That is because we wouldn't all be together here right now from all over, really worldwide, tuning in to hear this wonderful advice of you. And it's another person is saying this is more valuable than anything you can hear on TV news or by the pundits. And I mean, we're getting a lot of great comments coming in from Facebook saying, you know, how you got warmest regards and how important this is. I will just add at this little 1 second break. I'm glad that the studies are really backing up. Every day at 11 o'clock a.m. UK time, we're doing a 40-minute well-being workout, and it's really it's about focusing, it's about acceptance skills, and we're really getting a lot of community on here to practice these skills every single day. And then again, we do it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, bringing professionals and non-professionals on Zoom, and then having an actual interaction and doing acceptance skills together. So seeing that you've got this emotional regulation skills studies backing that up makes this much more effective. And I really appreciate you bringing that tonight. Carry on.
Thank you. Thank you. The most important skill was perspective taking. Remember, I said to you, for an example, dying from corona is bad, but many more die from other causes. We forget about this. Okay? Another way to put it is, there have been other, corona is a flu. Corona is not a cancer, it's a flu. We know what to do with flus. There are treatments for that. Yes, it's a new flu, it is a new flu. It is more dangerous than other flus, but the humanity has dealt with flus in the past, okay? It's not a tornado, okay? So we need to put things in perspective and look at how the strongest effect. This is sort of like reflecting this. The larger the D is, it means that this skill has a more effect on regulating emotions. So you need to remember these things. These are simple skills you can teach any human being in just a few minutes. No need 10 years of psychoanalysis. I'm serious. It's not funny. Okay? And it's, in my opinion, it's almost immoral not to take this seriously if it's based on 300 and so studies. Okay?
And you're going to teach us this tonight, aren't you?
Well, I'm just showing you now. Okay, so these are examples of sentences that you can say to people. You guys can come up with other sentences, and a lot of you have already now on Facebook, and thank you. So these are simple things, simple skills that we can teach each other and your patients to do them, okay? And I didn't invent this. This is not my research. I'll show you soon my research, but this is more important. Okay. Skipping in the, you know what? Just mention this. This is a study that showed that chronic stress was related to more cardiovascular risk factors, like having more blood pressure, having more insulin. But if your emotional regulation skills were good, then chronic stress was very weakly related to cardiovascular risk. So chronic stress, so emotional regulation is a protector. It can protect against the effects of stress, even on your body. Let's shift to coping. Coping is another kind of construct that people misuse. Coping refers to your thoughts and your behaviors that you do to either change the situation and solve it, or that you do to accept and accommodate your own self to the situation. One of the most important forms of coping are problem-focused coping, and it includes defining the problem. Some of us are not defining this problem correctly. Suggesting solutions. During stress, studies show that we don't even see all the solutions. We come up with one, but there are maybe a few or many solutions. Okay, again, this tunnel vision, or what I like to call horse vision. Choose the optimal one, given the constraints of money and time and space. Don't forget to do it. Okay, many societies never move to number 4 and evaluate if it worked. This is just an example of women with breast cancer who were seeking information. It's kind of problem solving. It's an active coping, had better quality of life. Okay, there's another study on cancer. My work is a lot on cancer, showing that depressive coping predicted faster dying. Active coping predicted less dying. Okay. Okay. What about hopelessness?
Just 1 second, Yori. We've got a Karine. I don't know what's happened here.
Yeah, I just gave her the link to this thing.
Oh, right. Okay, because we're not having anyone else in Zoom. You can watch it on YouTube or.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know that.
Because they will be broadcast all over the world as well. They're not
okay. Karine, apparently you are seen all over the world.
Anyway, carry on for the meantime.
Okay. Karim, can you hear me? Yeah, so we do not hear you because you're muted, but apparently I gave you the wrong way of linking, so I don't know. Sorry.
It's okay.
It's nicer to see Karim than me. Hopelessness is another concept that people misuse. Hopelessness is not a feeling, it's a set of cognitions. One of them is perceiving a lack of control, and the other one is expecting a negative future. These are two cognitions, okay? Healthcare workers that were quarantined felt more helpless than non-quarantined healthcare workers. So again, this is one of the consequences of the reality that we're in now, is that there are going to be more people with hopelessness. Hopelessness is a predictor of depression. Hopelessness predicts higher risk of heart attacks and survival from heart attacks and cancer. How can we help people with hopelessness? Again, not everybody is going to be hopeless in this situation. Actually, most people will not. Most people will be okay. But a certain minority of us might show signs of hopelessness. A large study that came out of China, of all places, and more research is coming out of China, by the way. So almost 3,000 people being cognitively active was related to lower levels of hopelessness. What is cognitive activity? Reading more books, playing games, attending to the media, which I'm not sure right now is the best thing to do, and not too much. It is important, but not too much. So maintaining cognitive activity is related to lower helplessness. I'm going to talk a bit about neuroscience now, just a bit. Some of you are probably more scientifically oriented. Studies showed that in the context of pain, physical pain, giving more control reduces pain. Interestingly, giving more control is related to higher activity in this region of the brain. It's called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. In animals that were given this activity here, they did not develop helplessness in a paradigm that causes animals to be helpless. And interestingly, when we do deep breathing, which activates the vagus nerve, and I'll talk about that soon, we actually might increase activity here. So all of these are telling us that giving more information and activating the vagus may actually make us less helpless. I'll talk about that soon, about how we can activate the vagus nerve. But hopeless people deactivate this region, and when you activate this region, you can actually make people less hopeless. Some of the ways to go over hopelessness or helplessness is by being more informed. That is a kind of cognitive control. I know what's happening. I can anticipate a bit more. I understand it. Gives us a sense of cognitive control. Continuing your daily routines that are under your control. So cooking, going to the shop, planning who you're going to talk to, planning what you're going to wear, planning out what you're going to eat. These are all small daily things, but which are under our control. We do not control how long the corona is going to last. We do not control the weather, as far as I know, but we have control on what we eat, what we dress, who we talk to. Focus on those things. And finally, do problem-focused coping, like getting information, talking to people, planning to study, do your work, make a plan and go according to the plan. All of these are the opposite and the antidotes to helplessness. Indeed, a study showed that problem-focused coping correlates negatively with helplessness. A lot of people are talking about resilience. There are many definitions for this term. It's a very important term. And there's a shift in the last 10 years, I would say, from hopelessness to resilience. And resilience is a very important concept. So resilience, according to the American Psychological Association, is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, and tragedy, and threats. Okay? So all of this is about adapting well. Another definition talks about resilience, about the ability to respond to stress, but then bounce back to how you were before stress. And some say get even stronger. Okay? Does our body have a resilience factor? Does our body have a natural resilience factor? I'm actually going to cite Corinne, who just listened, who's here with us, and she's a yoga teacher. She often talks about what are our natural resilience factors that we have, our natural resources. Indeed, I'm going to show you which one it is. It's called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a nerve that comes down from behind our neck from the brainstem, splits into two here, and it innervates all of these internal organs, your liver, your heart, your lungs, and many, many other organs. The heart here, sorry. It sends to the brain many, many pieces of information about these organs, and it goes to the brain, and it's really crucial in our resilience. I'm going to prove that to you. We measure its activity by what's called heart rate variability, not heart rate, but the change in your intervals. So if you see, these are your peaks of your heart rate, beam, 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 that's your heart rate. But you can see the intervals change slightly, very small changes. That's under the vagal nerve control. It's called heart rate variability. And I have a secret for you guys. The more you have change in these intervals, you're actually going to live longer. It's a predictor of survival in the society. And why am I telling you this? Because I want to show you that high vagal activity measured by heart rate variability predicts resilience. A study by Weber and Gillian Thayer gave students a very simple stressor, a very actually annoying stressor. And of course, they responded. They measured their blood pressure, they measured their cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and they measured inflammation. But they looked at how fast they recovered an hour later. And they split them into those with high vagal activity and those with low vagal activity. Okay? And this is what they found. This is, for example, their blood pressure. This is before the stressor, during the stressor, and an hour later. Dov, can you see my mouse moving?
Yeah, on T4.
Thank you. Right. Just wanted to check. You can see that everybody responds. Their blood pressure goes up, boom, just when there's a stressor, and then they go down, they recover. But who are the people that recover faster? The people who have in their trait, initially, a high vagal activity. When we have good vagal activity, in this case, high heart rate variability, people recover faster from stress. In fact, they showed this the same for cortisol and for inflammation. I'm just out of time, I did not want to show you this. Higher vagal activity is related to frontal regions. These frontal regions actually are the same regions that regulate our emotions. These frontal regions, which are related to higher vagal activity, are related to better decision-making, are related to better emotional regulation. And related to the coronavirus, I'm not promising here anything, but it's just a hypothesis of mine. One study showed in rats that higher vagal, I'm not sure if it's rats or mice, I don't know. I think it's rats. They gave them an infection, and they showed when the vagus nerve is not working, they have lower natural killer cells. When the vagus works very well, they have higher natural killer cells. Natural killer cells are cells of our immune system which fight viruses. Okay? So it might be, I want to be careful. Please don't take my words out of context. I did not say that we can use this, that this is a therapy for corona, but we think that it might play a role. The vagus nerve may play a role in slowing down the disease. Okay? How can we activate the vagus nerve? We can activate the vagus nerve by deep breathing, simple deep breathing. Okay? What you do is you inhale from your nose, you hold your breath, and you exhale. Okay? You inhale, hold, and exhale. Okay? Another way of doing it, somebody once told me, it's very cute. You do as if you're smelling a flower, and then you do as if you're blowing out a candle.
Can we do it, everybody now, Yori? Can you lead us in something?
You want me to do that? Okay.
Yeah, lead us now into an experiential example of this.
Sure, let's do it together. So you guys are going to inhale from your nose. I will count with you until 5. You're going to hold for 2, and then you exhale from your mouth with closed, almost closed lips, pursed lips. Okay? In Hebrew, sfatayim kmutzot. Okay? So let's do it together. You're going to inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2 and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2 and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, Dov. And again, slowly, slowly, each time you'll need to do it more slowly because you're getting more relaxed. Hold and take it out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And last time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2 and take it out really, really, really slowly. Okay. Okay.
Well, I hope everybody's doing that along with me and Yuri, because this is it's almost like an instant change, Yuri. Is it that fast?
Yes. So our research shows that within 8 to 12 seconds, your vagal activity goes up by just doing it. Okay. Unfortunately, it does not stay high. Once you stop it and go back to regular breathing, your vagal activity goes down to as it is in your natural setting.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you practice this regularly, though, does it strengthen your HRV?
Some studies show yes, some studies show no.
Right.
Okay. It's difficult to know why. However, a few things. If you do moderate physical exercise, your HRV will go up. If you eat Mediterranean food, it goes up, and not other countries' junk food. So you guys come to Israel or go to Italy once everything goes away, go to Spain once everything gets away. You need to be in the Mediterranean, Greece. Or if you're not there and you are in England or Canada and the United States or wherever you are, eat Mediterranean food, hummus, olive oil, nuts, vegetable and fruit, lots of vegetable and fruit and olive oil.
Avocado? Also.
Avocado. Each of us and their preferences. So there are studies showing that when you eat more Mediterranean food, your vagal activity goes up. Okay. This is a study where we took 50 French people. This is a small study. And we did something really simple. We randomized 25 of them to do this vagal breathing, just 2 minutes, 3 times a day, morning, noon, evening. Or they just got a text message saying, think about your stress, it's important. That was our placebo. So just stress awareness was my placebo. And the experimental group were instructed to do 2 minutes of this deep breathing 3 times a day and look at the results. We showed dramatic reductions in stress. In the breathing group, you can see nice reductions in stress. And so look at these nice reductions in stress just because of doing for 1 week, 2 minutes, 3 times a day of deep breathing, and also reductions in physical symptoms. It's not very large, but it's statistically lower. Okay.
Right. So just let me understand this, because I like to understand things very simply. If you do that breathing that we just did now, that vagal breathing, 2 or 3 times a day, we're seeing that is very active in lowering stress
and physical symptoms.
And physical symptoms.
That's right.
Stress.
Okay.
So wow, that's more powerful than I thought it was before.
Well, the reason is, and I did not explain, the vagus actually reduces inflammation. One of its body functions is to inform the brain about inflammation and then reduce it. This is another reason why we think it might help.
Is very, very important to physical health, not just mental health. That's physical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because many of our chronic diseases today in society, stroke, obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, you name it, are also because of inflammation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The vagus nerve, in all of these diseases, the vagus is not working enough.
Right.
Okay, and if you increase vagal activity, you might be able to slow down these diseases because of inflammation.
So even if you're not like in super hyper stress, it's worthwhile practicing this even on a daily routine basis.
I fully agree.
Wonderful. Now, can I just at this point just say there's a couple of questions coming in. I don't want to miss them for you. So you don't have to answer them right now, but I just want you to keep them in mind. One is could you mention the use, Adam says, could you mention the use of vagal breathing in the context of psychological first aid, for example, after sirens? So Mary says, Van Hoff, if you've heard of him, Dutch guy, based his breathing method on this principle. I don't know if you've got anything to say about that. Verid said, what can impact the influence of the vagal nerve? Well, I think you just explained that.
What do you mean, what can impact?
I'm thinking that it's the breathing, but I'm not sure. Maybe Verid can tell us a little bit.
Okay, I think what she means by that, what other factors influence how it works? Age in one of them. It goes down by age. When we are older, the vagus is not working as well.
Right. Okay.
Smoking reduces vagal activity.
Smoking. So there you go. Smoking. As an ex-smoker, I can say that I thoroughly recommend it. And I was a heavy smoker, but I've not smoked for many years now. And the change is extraordinary. And I don't just mean breathing and everything. I'm talking about stress. Stress levels go down when you stop smoking. It's kind of a paradox, because a lot of people will say they smoke because they're stressed, but actually it really does go down. It is reciprocal activating the VMPFC lowers heart rate. Do you understand that?
Can you repeat again, please?
Yossi says, it is reciprocal activating the VM prefrontal cortex lowers heart rate.
I would estimate the answer is yes, but I want to be careful, because when you are increasing vagal activity, you're reducing heart rate. So there's an inverse relation between vagal activity and heart rate. And the VMPFC is one of the homes of vagal activity. Okay, but we're getting into very
technical for
no problem. I like this, but I'm not sure that all the listeners are.
I thought it was just fair if they asked the question anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Let's continue a bit, and I have no problem.
Verid said, thank you, the breathing gave me an answer, so well done.
Okay. Okay. A very important thing is social support. Hundreds of studies, literally hundreds of studies, show the importance of social support in physical health and in mental health. I'm going to give you an example. In physical health, this is a simple study, an old study by Gidron, where they did the following. They had people come into a room, and all the people in the room were sitting, and the person that came in had blood pressure measured and heart rate, and they were talking about a controversial topic. And in half the cases, everybody disagreed with him or her. In the other cases, all the people disagreed with him or her, but only one person actually supported him, his opinion or her opinion. As you can see, when everybody disagrees, the blood pressure boom goes up, heart rate goes up. But it's enough that one person supports you, the blood pressure and heart rate go less up.
Wow.
Okay. The body responds beneficially to social support during stress. It is so crucial that we maintain our contacts, if it's via Facebook, via Skype, via 2 yogurt glasses and a cord between them, whatever. Maintain the social support. It's good for your mental and physical health.
One person is already an effect.
Right. The same study that I showed before showed that social engagement was related to lower level loneliness, obviously. Okay? Social engagement in that study was about going out and seeing friends, which we can't do now. But what we could do is we need to find new virtual ways to see people. Facebook, social, all the social network stuff, WhatsApp, phone, and maybe be involved in social activities. Get out and do volunteering things.
Shopping for people, if they can't buy shopping, you can
help other people, etc. Give advice. This is all about social engagement. Okay, it makes you less lonely and it helps other people. So it's a win-win thing. Okay, I'm coming to the last topic, which is, well, 2 more topics. One of them is about trauma. Now, a lot of us really believe And still, too many mental health people believe that doing debriefing is really good for solving mental problems at trauma. Somebody, I think it was Adam, asked about sirens, and okay. But until 1990, nobody tested whether this debriefing actually works. So the debriefing is about telling somebody, a professional, about your traumatic event. The therapist then normalizes your reactions. It's totally okay if your hands shake. It's very normal that you have flashbacks. It's very normal that you have difficulty sleeping. The therapist provides a lot of empathy and support. And then we have this Western obsession on emotions. It's very important that you tell me what you feel, that you express it, that you share it. This crosses cultures, okay? I've given these talks in in several humanitarian missions in different parts of the world. And so many people and professionals really strongly believe in these things. And this is the price that we pay when we do not test things and we only go according to belief or according to a nice book that somebody wrote. For meta-analyses, a meta-analysis is an international review. 4 reviews of this showed that debriefing is inefficient. It does not prevent PTSD, not at all. In fact, in some studies, one British study actually showed that it is a risk factor for PTSD. In fact, the United Nations and the World Health Organization forbid using debriefing in disaster zones. So I'm not going to go into the alternative that we've developed because of time. But basically, we know that it's not so simple about just sharing your emotions. These are very nice romanticizing concepts, but the evidence doesn't hold. We know that what happens in trauma is that people overactivate a negative emotion center called the amygdala, and they deactivate the frontal cortex. People who are in the same situation and are resilient and do not develop PTSD, show the opposite. They activate the prefrontal cortex and they deactivate the amygdala. In fact, there are nerve fibers going from the frontal cortex to the amygdala and telling it, stop it, it's over, it's okay. So what we need to do is we need to shift the processing from here to here. That's why I did this red arrow. And the question is, how do we get there? Well, one of our colleagues, Edna Foa, showed that when people organize, when women who were sadly raped, their story became more and more chronological, which is a frontal thing, their PTSD symptoms went down. So maybe we need to help people organize chronologically their memory. Another study by Ahmed Hariri, who is a very fine Iranian scientist working in the States, he showed people sad faces, and he asked them to match which of the face here matches the one on top. So this is an emotional and a sensory skill. And he looked at their brain while they were doing this task. The amygdala was jumping. In contrast, when he asked people which word resembles the face on top, the prefrontal cortex was jumping. So we need to tell people to label their sensations and feelings rather than just re-feel them. I don't have anything against emotions. I'm a very emotional person myself, but it's about regulating emotion, not about expressing it. It's about regulating. You want to teach people to use the volume button of their emotions rather than just sharing it. Okay. Finally, my dear colleague from Texas, Jamie Pennybaker, showed that when people write about sad and traumatic events, they get better. By the way, especially in their physical health, more than emotional health. But not everybody. And when he goes back and he looked at their analysis on what they wrote, it was about cognitive words like causality. I went to the shop because I needed to get food. I went to the market because I went to the mall because I looked for shoes for my daughter. It is these words, because, therefore, thus, that makes the benefit. And so if any of you or people that you might know may be going through this event and may have risk for post-traumatic stress, you might want to give them a guided disclosure protocol. The guided disclosure protocol we developed, Elaine Duncan, a colleague of mine from Glasgow, by the way, your city, and me, it is the following. Ask people to describe chronologically one event. Just describe it like a journalist. It was 7 o'clock. I got up, I got dressed, I went to the shower. I got dressed, I had my breakfast, etc., etc. Just chronologically with no emotions first. Then describe clearly your thoughts and feelings and give them a reason and say what led to what. I went through there because of that. I felt that way because of that. I suddenly was cold because of this. I had pain because of that. Will the event change your life? For example, will it change your priorities? If you will ever be exposed to something like that again, how will you cope with it in the future? This is future planning of coping. And as hard as this experience was, did it contribute to your personal growth? This is called post-traumatic growth.
Yori, can I ask you, how often with one person, is this like a one-off, or should you repeat this a number of times over time?
I'm coming to that. We tested it in 3 days of writing consecutively. Okay, you can each, sorry, forgive me. I'm talking about another thing. You do it in one time over 45 minutes, or you can do every bit over a few days, like the first two, and then another one, and then the last one. Right. But it should not be more than 45 minutes, okay, in total.
In total, okay.
Thank you. And this is the effects. We did a small study on parents of children with cancer. Studies show that parents of children with cancer, even after the child is well, the parents might develop depression and PTSD years later. Still have it. So we showed that it nicely reduced. This is twice before, and this is after the writing. It goes down. Their PTSD symptoms went down. We did not show an effect on depression, but we showed an effect on post-traumatic stress symptoms. This is our first study where we compared just writing about what I did today versus this guided disclosure protocol. And over 15 months, we showed a reduction in doctor visits in Israel. This is in the south of Israel, in Beersheba.
Wow.
So just writing like that had a long-term effect on clinical health utilization. Coming to the last skill. Some people will show levels of depression. Some people will be depressed. Okay? There's a relatively new method called behavioral activation. Behavioral activation comes from the premise that depression often occurs when people are not doing pleasant things. They're avoiding pleasant things. They are anhedonic. Anhedonia is not doing pleasurable events, restricting yourself from pleasure. And what you do in behavioral activation is you identify with your patient or with your colleague which things they like to do in their life, which give them pleasure, but they are avoiding from doing. It doesn't matter the reason. Then plan with them in a realistic way, right? Realistic. A time and a place and activity they're going to do in the next week. And make a contract. Each of you and your clients sign it. Okay, this is called the intention implementation. So each of you sign a little page saying, I'm going to do, from Monday, I'm going to start doing, I don't know, I'm going to start talking to my best friend twice a week at 4 o'clock every day, on Monday and Thursday, let's say, okay? I'm going to play my guitar, I'm going to do some dancing. Now, in this case, we're quarantined at home, a lot of us, so do it realistically. You can talk with your friend on the phone. You can learn to dance in your room. You can learn to cook something that you like to do at home, okay? Don't choose things that are unrealistic for the constraints that we have now. Does it work? Yes, it does. 26 studies already tested it. And look at the effect in a study that on 46 people. This is behavioral activation.
2 slides, Yori. The bottom one, you kind of quickly went over, but I think is really significant. Sorry. Even more than medication.
That's right. Sorry.
That's
20 studies.
Powerful.
Yeah, not all of them. Some of the studies show that it may even be more effective than medication. Now, listen, please, my dear friends, this is not about telling people, how do you feel? And how do you feel? And how do you, we have to stop our obsession, our childish obsession about this issue. It's about, let's plan nice things to do. It's so simple. It's actually almost mind-boggling how something so simple can actually be effective.
It's a change of
26 studies.
emphasis. Yeah, absolutely.
And look at the results. This is a study that did behavioral activation, no difference at baseline, and you can see, boom, drop in depression, okay, after 2 sessions.
2 sessions, that's extremely...
As far as I remember, yeah. Now, I don't know if it's been tested in the long term, because that's a question I usually get. I haven't seen studies that looked, I've seen it at 4 months it holds, but I don't know about longer term. I do not know. So, last thing is to please use assessment. Do not only rely on your clinical impressions for evaluating patients and people. We are people, and because we're human, we make mistakes in our evaluation. In fact, all studies show that clinical impressions have very little reliability. What can I do? So there are very small scales. There's a visual analog scale for stress. One question, on a scale from 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, how much stress do you have? Many studies show that that simple question is very valid. There's the HADS, Hospital Anxiety and Depression, 7 questions for anxiety, 7 for depression. There are norms for this. It's very easy. It's been translated to many languages. There's a 2-item hopelessness scale. There's the Oslo 3-item social support scale. There's a scale for everything. And the use of scales enables you to measure your patient's well-being over the treatment in a standardized way, and not only in a qualitative way based on your impressions, which don't have much reliability, I'm sorry to say. I'm not saying that clinical impressions are not at all worthwhile. They are, but it's just not enough. So in conclusion, there are potential mental health consequences for the situation and from being quarantined. We need to be aware of that. A lot of us will be okay, but some of us will not be okay. Okay, we need to go out and help each other for that. Emotional regulation skills are very powerful. Many studies show this. Simple ones are perspective taking, positive reappraisal. Problem-focused coping and cognitive engagement can maybe reduce helplessness. Activating your vagal breathing by deep-paced breathing has numerous effects on physical health, mental health, and may even help in this corona because it's anti-inflammatory and it enhances antiviral immunity. Providing social support and being socially engaged is crucial. Planning pleasant activities can reduce depression. And for those at risk for PTSD, you might want to use the written guided disclosure. Toda rabba.
Wow. Yori, what can I say? I'm first of all in awe. You're my teacher, and a lot of these things that you've taught me in the past, I put into my private practice. I put into my group practice. You've inspired me again tonight by fine-tuning some of the details. Our daily, find well that I'm a big acceptance and commitment therapy student, and a lot of that fits in very well with all of that. And so that's what I teach, and that's what I live by, and it really fits in. I think you packaged it so well. I have to tell you and be very honest and fair to everybody else. Everyone else got 20 to 25 minutes. I didn't stop you. 1, because out of respect at the fact that you're my professor, and 2, because it was absolutely fascinating. And there was no way that I was going to stop you at any time. In fact, I would have let you go on further and further. And we've had people watching this constantly from beginning to end. It's unusual. People in Facebook Live sometimes drop off. They've been glued to the screens. I haven't checked what's been going on in YouTube. I don't know how to thank you more than just say thank you to you at the moment and say, look, it really fits in with your values to share this. You're so generous. That's all I can say. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer if there are any more questions.
Okay, so let's see if there was any questions coming in.
I'm sorry I took too much time.
No, not apologize. I just wanted to say it from the opposite. It's a compliment. So Moran Sewer says, thank you. This was great and inspiring. Lilach says, great, so inspiring. Susan Cohen says, amazing. Thank you so much. Adam says, brilliant. Thank you so much. You know, we've got Susan says, interesting. This is what we learn. Thank you. The breathing, it just goes on and on and on. All these different comments coming in. Yael says, thank you, Yori. Yael Hirsch. So, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that I know, and I'll tell everybody that's watching that you are, and you've said it many times, or Miriam Moore says, we really got a wonderful treatment protocol here. Thank you. I know, and you've told me that you're basically on call for me, and I've tried it out. It's not that you've just said it in, you know, like in polite talk. I've tried it out more than once, and you have been there. And I want to tell everybody that anytime there's a disaster, whether it's in Los Angeles, whether it's in New Zealand, whether it's anywhere else, Yori's the first within minutes contacting me saying, can we get there? Can we get out there? Can we phone them? Can we get them some education and some treatment out there that we can do? He's constantly vigilant to try and help people. You've helped us a lot tonight. And once again, I thank you. And
thank you very much. I wish you all good health.
Be safe.
Shalom from Israel.
Healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank
Shalom.
Bye-bye. Shalom, shalom.
Okay, I think you need to release me from the share.
I have to release you, or you have to release me?
Well, just
no, I took off my share screen. I took it off.
Oh, you did? Because I'm still on it. So hold on.
Rega.
You've still got it on.
No, how do I turn this off?
Oh. All right.
I thought you.
We're there.
It's okay?